body was great. Body was great, really good. It was just the heart and the head. There has been discussions with the Jackies as to maybe there is a role with them moving forward, and they've let me know that. Going into Perth, it was, how do I fit into a team that's like a dynasty? I guess a lot of my learnings come from WAGs in that instance, and it can be as simple as just leading by example.
Welcome back to a very special episode of The Huddle, because we're talking to, now I can officially call you a legend, Clint Steindl, because that's normally what happens when the greats of the game hang it up and you have announced your retirement. So thanks for joining me, one. But two, since announcing your retirement, how's the emotions? How's everything feeling?
No, thanks for having me on, Pete. Yeah, look, I don't think it'll fully kick in, I guess, retirement and everything that comes with it until June, July rolls around, when guys start getting back into the gym and you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be in there with them. That's what I've done for the past 13 years. So right now it kind of feels like I've just gone into an off season. But once winter rolls around and July kicks in, guys are coming back first week of August into training camp, I think it'll hit me then that, I'm no longer a player in professional basketball.
Can you tell us a little bit about the decision-making process on these? Because it is a delicate one, and normally we hear from guys who have retired saying, look, that thought popped up a year before, 2 years before, I kind of fought it off. How did it all come to the end for you?
Yeah, I've kind of mentioned previously, I guess, over the last few weeks since I made, announced the decision a week ago. These thoughts you have at the back of your mind, and it occasionally popped up throughout the season, just little instances of moments, and you're in the midst of fighting for playoff spots and all that, and you kind of try and get it out of the forefront of your mind, knock it to the back, and I'll worry about it later. And I guess as the season went on, I guess you kind of realize what's important in life. Like, you have your kids running around, they're growing up fast, you're missing little athletics events that they're in, and those sorts of things. And I guess it kind of started to become more at the forefront of the mind when I sat down with Scott and he asked, what do you think about next year? And I'd love to have you back, and you're moving great, and we'd love to see you go around again. And I just mentioned to him that I'm half here, I'm half there. I hadn't thought about it much. And I guess up until probably a month ago when we had another discussion, and then another one after that. And I was like, I'm kind of leaning this way. And he's kind of looking at me like, what are you doing that for? Why are you heading in that direction? It's not what I had planned. And I guess I had the decision pretty much made up, I guess, a week and a half before our last game. And going into that last game, we're still, last two games, we were still fighting for a playoff spot. Last regular season game was our teal game for the She Foundation. And I was just like, I'll wait until afterwards and then I'll announce it. And we got through that, and I mean, it was still in my mind, and the meetings with Scott and some of the coaches kind of knew what was happening, and I just wanted to try and leave it as best as I could until after the season, when I guess made the decision and announced it.
How hard is it for you, especially because you mentioned toying with it for a little while, but also we see guys, sometimes they have to retire whether their body's just not there for them. And the fact that Scott Ross said, you're moving well, because we called plenty of games, you look great this year. We were talking and we're looking at the free agent list being like, well, you absolutely bring Clint Steindl back. So it's really not the body. Is it more of that family and more of, I guess, the timing right now is the absolute perfect thing for me to do what's next in my career, obviously, whatever that will be, which we want to find out. But two, for family-wise, it just couldn't be better right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, you said it. The body was great. Really good. It was just the the heart and the head, and I still had that fire in the belly. It didn't burn as intense as what it had in previous years to really go again. And in the end, I've had a lot of people invest in my career, from a junior through to the AIS to college into the professional ranks, and lately none more so than my wife Kayla and
Mm.
the kids, and my parents and my sister and her family, in terms of how they support me. And uh, my heart and my head just got to a point where I need to invest in them. This
Mm.
is the time. We live in a wonderful city and a great state that is so passionate about their sports. And we've been here 4 years and set up a life, a network, not just within basketball, but outside of that. And I really felt it was just time to invest in them, those that are close to me, and to be around the kids more, help my wife with her ambitions, and this stepping away from basketball for me allows me to do that.
I love to hear you say that because I had the smallest portion of the career that you had, but a very similar, I guess, mindset of how important family is. So, can you take us into that little bit of a snapshot? Did Kayla know early, like what happened when you kind of sat down saying, "Hey, I think this is it," and even more so for the kids, do they quite understand that if I know there's potential talk of you being around the jack jumper still in the future, but hey, Dad's not going to be on the floor doing his thing.
Yeah, well, like my wife kind of broke the news to our son Noah at a point, and I kind of talked to him about it, and his first comment was like, "So, what team are you going to play for?" And I'm like, "But I'm not playing for another team. The team is me and you, and our home court is the front driveway with the basketball hoop. You might be able to see it straight out my
Yeah.
back there, but that's our team." And he's like, "Are you still going to wear number 35?" And I'm like, "You come up with the numbers and I'll wear them. You come
Yeah.
up with the team names and I'll work with it. But from here on out, it's us two." And soon enough, it'll be my daughter Addie, out on the front driveway shooting hoops, and no doubt Kayla, my wife, will be out there and she'll be kicking all our butts because she's still going strong. So, um, yeah, the toughest part about the retirement for me, which I'm going to find out, is how invested my son is
Mm,
in my teammates.
yeah.
And I'd take him down on a day off, and he would go fill up ice bags with Ryan Carroll, our physio. He was doing this at probably even before he turned 4. He was still 3 at the time. He'd go grab a pool noodle. You know, there's ones you use that coaches use for defense. He'd go grab 2 of those. He'd throw one to Jack McVeigh. He'd hold on to the other one, and they start having sword fights. And it's those moments that are going to be tough, because I can see how much he enjoyed being in that environment, how much he loved going to the games. I don't know if you saw the videos of him on Flex Cam,
Yeah.
just arms up, just holding on, holding his breath like like there's no tomorrow. And that's going to be the hardest part for me, is I guess him not always being around that environment. But hopefully I'll get invited back down to watch some practices, and I'll certainly take Noah along, and get him back in his element.
It's an interesting one because it just popped in my head then hearing all of that you're talking about. Do you think that the fact that you've created this now life and this home in Tasmania, and we see it and we hear it from everybody there about how family orientated it is, not just the jack jumpers, but really the whole state, and how encapsulated everybody is with each other. Do you think being in Tasmania at this point in your career, say if you were elsewhere, you might have played on maybe another year or two, you just think that that family side of it is like the life is so beautiful for you guys in Tassie, and as we said now, like it's the right time. Whereas if it was somewhere else, maybe it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, Tassie has a lot to offer,
Mm.
outside of the basketball world as well. As much as they love their sports, and I guess their blue collar work ethic down here in what people do. We love the outdoors. I mean, we take the kids hiking. We take them. I mean, you can swim down here. It is bloody freezing, but the kids don't mind. But it just we enjoy the lifestyle that Tasmania has to offer, and no matter where you go in the state, everyone's talking jack jumpers. I mean, the club has been able to create a support system and a fan base that goes beyond Tasmania. So for us to, I guess, say I'm retiring and then up and leave, that'd be a big mistake. We enjoy it down here, and we're going to make the most of the kids being in school and my wife working, and hopefully soon enough I'll finish uni and I'll start some work, whatever that'll be in. But we love it down here, and we're going to make the most of it.
That being said, then what's next in the short term besides family orientated? Because I know that we did hear, and Scott Ross said hopefully there's something around the club, and you mentioned being invited back to practices. I don't think that'll be any issue getting you back involved in some point. Do you have any thought at all about what's next in the short term?
Mate, even if I still go back to practice, I reckon I'll be sitting there and Roth will still yell at me about something. So, Steindl, shut up and watch. Short term is finishing off my masters. I've got one unit left in my masters of teaching, and so I started that back when I was in Perth, actually, and that's something that has stayed with me and is pretty special to me, actually, and finishing that off. So I'm going to be fully finished with that come end of June. But outside of that, I'm very open-minded as to what's next. There has been discussions with the Jackies as to maybe there is a role with them moving forward, and they've let me know that. And but at this stage, I'm quite open-minded, because really all I've known is basketball and family and uni over the last while, and there's a lot out there in the world, and whatever opportunities come my way, I'm gonna look at them and learn about them and see where they may lead. So there's no definitive pathway just yet beyond end of June.
The one thing you have to be excited about, and I'm sure it's going to be coming thick and fast, is your golf game. I know you're very, very handy with the sticks, and now all of a sudden you get some time where it normally was practice, normally was weights, maybe even promos, where you can get out on the course. What are you playing off these days?
Add in kids, add in weather, and it never lines up.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Especially with weather down here in Tassie. Playing off a 14 at the moment, and that's going off probably a round of golf every 2.5 months.
Yeah.
But I'm aiming to get out a few times next week, and when we find a bit of a schedule, a bit of a routine again, I'd love to get up north and play Barnbougle. And
that was my question.
King Island. So they're on the list, but in due time, I'll be able to get up there and enjoy that.
We're gonna have to set some. We need some more vision, because it's a beautiful swing. There's a couple of NBL guys that have some beautiful swings. You're one of them. The quick snapshot of your career, and you're going back to 2007 with the AIS, then to St. Mary's, doing all of that, to Cairns Taipans. When you can try and look back and sum it all up now about some of those key memories and key learnings to help you make you who you were, what are you most proud of having achieved looking back at it all?
Oh, I guess in the first instance, I kind of think, how did I end up here? And like coming out of high school, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I was actually preparing for schoolies, and I was trying to figure out what friends I'm going with, where we're staying, and I ended up getting this call from Marty Clark when he was a head coach at the AIS, and he's like, "Do you want to come on a tour to Italy with us?" And I said, "Absolutely. When is it?" And he told me the dates, and I'm like, "That's the middle of schoolies." So I was like, "Am I going to schoolies? Am I going to Italy with the best basketball players in my age group?" And I said, "I'm in." And then I guess I got offered the scholarship to the AIS after that, and it's kind of just been this progression. But going into Cairns, my first 2 years was kind of figuring out how do I fit in?
Mm.
Professional environment. You're no longer playing against guys who are kind of around your age. You playing. I mean, my first year, I was playing against Glenn Saville and Matt Campbell, and it was a big step, and I was just trying to find my way. And then going into Townsville under Sean Dennis, it was he helped me find how I can be aggressive in the game. You're no longer just kind of a role guy. Like, we need you to perform, we need you to produce, and I really enjoyed playing under SD, and he helped me figure out that okay, I belong. I can play with the big guys and find my way around. And then going into Perth, it was how do I fit into a team that's like a dynasty? And
Yeah.
I went into that first year after about 10 games, after Matty Knight retired, and they brought me in, and I was well below where I expected. Well, I had expectations for, and I'm sure I was well below their expectations of me, of just trying to fit in, get it all together, and perform. And it took probably a season and a bit to really find my role in there. And the biggest things I learned there was from guys like Wagstaff and Damo, and how they lead. Two very different leaders. Damo very charismatic. Wagstaff, just get on with my job, leave me alone. And I kind of use that to, I guess, help me along in my ways in Tassie. And I don't really see I've never really been a natural leader. Like, I can follow you, I'll receive feedback and make adjustments and get on with it. But trying to figure out how to be a leader, and I guess a lot of my learnings come from Wags in that instance. And it can be as simple as just leading by example, just doing the same thing, repetitive behaviors, leaning on your experiences and just doing them over and over and over again. And I mean, that guy's done it over and over again for 16, 17 years now. And so that's kind of, I guess, the progression I've seen through my 13 years of playing professional basketball, particularly in the NBL.
Does it still feel strange, I guess, to go back even this season when you're going back to play in Cairns, where you had such a big part of your career there, and then to Perth, even road games in Perth, where everyone right now, the new fans especially, just know you as this is a jack jumper from day one. He was here when it all started, but I mean, you won the championships in Perth, you started everything in Cairns. Do things change around? Do you still remember your game day routines when you get up to the far north?
They've certainly changed. Like, I remember coming out of college and going to that first season, like pre-game routines, like you're napping, you're listening to music on the way into the gym, you're in the locker room, you got the big headphones on, and mate, you're going to be shocked when I tell you this of kind of what my pre-game ritual is. This past couple of years was, if the kids are sleeping, I might have a nap. If they want to do something, then we're going to go do something. And I haven't listened to music in the car and I don't know how long. Actually, last year I listened to an AFL podcast all season, and just guys talking trash about AFL and life, and this year was a podcast on financial stuff, and it's wild. And it was just to get my mind off basketball, allowed me to relax, just calmed whatever performance anxiety I had going on in my mind. And it was just a way of me to let everything go, listen to something else. And once I walked into the gym, felt invigorated, I was refreshed, and now I'm straight back into basketball. And it's quite funny how things change over the course of your career, where you thought, no, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And you find out it can change very quickly.
Well, one thing that won't change, and that is, and I think Steve Kerr proved it before he was a coach, he was doing some media stuff and he rolled out with the suit and took it off, and shooters never lose their touch. So at any point, whether you're playing locally, NBL 1, whatever it is, you're going to be able to do what you've done exceptionally well for that many years, and that's shoot the rock. And I've always wanted to ask you this question because we've seen some phenomenal shooters in the NBL. And I've been alongside of, I'm talking about Chris Golding. Everyone wants to talk about Chris Golding. And that man can shoot with his feet in particular facing every single direction. It doesn't matter. But something I always admired about the way you went about it is any coming off screen or doing whatever, your footwork was unmatched in terms of some of the best shooters I've ever seen. Was that a conscious effort when you first started playing basketball? How did you get into that? Always understanding the left, right, or right, left coming off screens, because it's always on point. And that's why you had the success from outside.
Yeah, that was probably part of the game in terms of, I guess, how quick can you get a shot off that I learned at the Institute of Sport under Marty and Paul Goris and Ben Rush. And it was kind of preparing you for the next level, understanding that you're going to come against guys that are way more athletic than you, a whole lot faster, a whole lot stronger. And it was from the point that you catch the ball, how do you get that shot off as quick as you can? And you go through the mechanics of the one step into a bunny hop, the inside foot 1-2, and you just figure out that, okay, this is the fastest way I can get a shot off. Now I've just got to repeat that over and over and over. And I guess from that point where I went into the Institute, what is it, 15 years ago?
17 now, wouldn't it? 2008? Or coming up on 17.
Yeah. So in terms of the footwork, that's where I first learned it. And then it was just kind of refine it here and there. You're always trying to pick apart your shot. You're always trying to make it better. But if you can figure out the base, then you can kind of work through that. And it gets to a point where all the great shooters, doesn't matter where their feet are facing, you have this repetition and rhythm that all it becomes is straight out of your arms. Doesn't matter which way your body's facing. It's going to come down to how strong is that follow through, and then the result is the result, and you make it. You're going to shoot it again, you miss it, and you sure as hell are going to shoot it again. So a lot of my learnings in terms of footwork comes from the AIS.
We saw a couple of those big ones throughout the championship runs, and this is a unique opportunity actually to ask you about the 3 championships you've won. 2 of them have been on John Cain Arena.
Yeah.
So that your first one.
The second one was in a conference room.
Yeah. The first one happened to be ending my career actually in John Cain Arena, that game 4. What is it about winning a championship on an opposing team's floor in the heated battle of a series that people who have never done it will never get the opportunity to do will understand that feeling?
Yeah, well, I guess I can't really compare it to what it's like winning it at home. I guess the closest thing I can compare to winning it at home was like game 2 of the semi-finals, our first year here in Tassie, against Melbourne, and the energy and the feeling in that building. But going into an away gym where seemingly everything is stacked against you, but the difference being with Tassie was the fans that travelled from Tassie up there, the ones that already resided on the mainland and said, we're getting involved, we're going to this game to support the Jackies. And I'm sure you've seen videos and photos of Jackies supporters walking through Melbourne or a pub before and after games there, it certainly didn't feel like everything was stacked against it because you had such a really good following. But you're going into a hostile environment where everything you've practiced for is hopefully preparing you for the last 2 minutes of Game 5 of a championship series, and in the end, it comes down to the last 15 seconds of a Game 5 in a championship series. So all those learnings that you've had throughout the season, and I guess winning a championship on an away floor is, I guess it's extremely hard to do. Without getting greedy, I would have loved to have won one on a home floor just to experience that for sure.
That leads me to the final chat here. We've got to break down just the move to Tasmania in general. And I know you mentioned now how it is home and building a family there. When that first phone call came, or Tasmania's entered the competition and you've decided, you know what, I think I'm heading down. One, could you have ever imagined that you'd achieve what you did on the floor with a brand new club in the NBL in such a short amount of time? But two, everything that has come with being off the floor in a state that I'm sure growing up you never thought you'd be living in for so long.
Yeah, someone actually asked me that today. I was out the front of the house and they were walking by and they're like, could you have imagined it? I mean, I thought, you know what, you can't script what the Jackies have been able to do down here in Tassie. And I guess going through the process of the move from Perth down to Tassie, I often reflect back to after my first 2 years in Perth, and I had the opportunity to go join the Phoenix when they first come into the league. And I was going through that process of deciding what to do then. I was very torn, so torn that I ended up driving to a wobble game 1.5 hours away when really it was meant to be 15 minutes down the road. So my mind was cooked. With the opportunity after spending 4 years in Perth to come down to Tassie, that decision was purely based on what opportunity do I have and what will the experience be like. And I just, my wife and I couldn't turn down the opportunity to help start another club in the league from the ground. Didn't come down here thinking I was going to be captain or anything like that. I just wanted to get down, get involved, and kind of leave a mark on a new club and what they were trying to build. And speaking to Scott a number of times after having at that point a small relationship with him from our time in Perth, and it just come to a point where let's go do it. And Jacob Chance was there. He made the move as well. Jared Bairstow, Will Magnay. And to make that move, everyone says it was like, oh, it was a pretty good punt. I'm like, I wasn't punting on anything. Like I wasn't taking a chance. I was like, let's just go try something. Let's go experience a new club and start it from the ground and see what we can do. And I guess with the success that's been achieved down here, you can say, great decision. How did you see that coming? But in the end, mate, it was what opportunity you're going to get, what experience are going to come from it. And, the people of Tasmania have embraced it. And I'm sure they would have embraced it even if we didn't have this much success. They'd love their sport down here. They'd love getting behind a local team, a Tassie team. So I've absolutely loved my time down here and wouldn't trade for anything.
To end, I want to talk about the thought of your career as a whole, the championships, all of that's one thing, but you've actually probably experienced something that no one else or very few would have. And that's one, when you started in the NBL, seeing where the league was and the league growing, to then being a part of it when it was at its lowest point, to then where it's at now, to thriving. But in the middle of that is you were part of a Townsville team that folded, that potentially nearly ended your NBL career, and you're over in Europe. to building a franchise up from the ground and winning a championship. There's not many, if any, who are put in that position and can say they've had a successful career like you. It's wild to even say out loud.
Yeah. Look, after those 2 years in Townsville, I called SD saying, "Yep, I'm coming back for another year," and he's like, "Sorry, mate, the club's going under." I'm like, "What?" We were just talking about re-signing, and I think one of the, I guess, what ifs then was we had a very young core group in those after those 2 years in Townsville. Yeah, guys like Mitch Norton, will bring Nick Kay. You're bringing in, from what I heard, Mitch McCarron into that fold, coming straight out of college. And one
little
of the
tidbit for you, I was supposed to join that team too.
right there you go. So it's like I often look back on that and go, imagine if that happened. Obviously, Townsville hasn't won an NBL championship, and you think back with that young core group, it's like maybe we could have done something special, but it wasn't to be. And yeah, I ended up down here in Tassie, and yeah, like you said, you wouldn't have thought it, couldn't script it, couldn't dream of it, but it happened.
And we're glad it did, because it's a memory that'll live on in sporting history, not just the NBL and basketball, because it's just unbelievable what the Jackies have done. And you're a big part of that, mate. So congratulations on what was an exceptional career, and good luck for what's next. I don't think we've seen the last of Clint Steindl rolling around in whether it's Jack Jumpers or whatever it is. I'm sure we're still going to see it. And then eventually maybe there's a different Steindl on the back of the name of the Jackies in a few years' time.
Yeah, mate. I'm trying to get some golf clubs into him, but it keeps turning them into sticks. So I reckon it could be a Jackie's player. And sure enough, I reckon my daughter will give it a shake. And when they get a women's team down here, I reckon that's going to take off just as quick. Because women's sport is just, it's flying right now, and I hope they get a women's team down here shortly, because people are going to get behind it, and these little girls are going to have role models to look up to. So big times for Tassie Head, and I'm sure I'll probably be involved in basketball somewhere along the lines.
Mate, you can see it written now. 15, 20 years time, Steindls are both the head of the women's and meds programs, and both son and daughter are playing in it as well. It's already written, mate. Thank you so much for joining me, mate, and good luck with everything.
No, thanks for having me, Pete. Cheers, mate.